All right, before I talk about the two types of cells, the prokaryote and the eukaryote, I wanted to discuss a little bit and explain the meanings behind these strange words. First off, the term karyote, let me change this. The word karyote refers to the word kernel, and if you look for the definition of kernel, you will find that it means the central most important part. So in other words, karyote, or the kernel, refers to the nucleus of a cell, which is the central most important part. And so when we look at the term prokaryote, the term pro, the prefix pro, means before. So prokaryote means before the nucleus, or before the kernel. All right, so since the prokaryote is before the nucleus, it is a cell that does not have a nucleus. So no nucleus in the prokaryote. And so I'm sure you can guess a little bit about the eukaryote. The term eu means true. And so this means true nucleus, or true kernel, or true karyote, however you want to think about it. And so this would be a cell that does have a nucleus. So the prokaryote are cells with no nucleus, and the eukaryote are cells that does have a nucleus. So here we have a picture of a typical prokaryote, much like the picture we have in our book, I believe, and they all don't look exactly the same. One of the most important aspects that you should know about a prokaryote, or when you ever hear that word prokaryote, that it means we're basically talking about bacteria. And bacteria are single-cell organisms, and the cells have no nucleus. And if you look over here, this weird structure here, those are strands of DNA. It has cytoplasm, has different organelles called ribosomes. It also has a cell wall, and we'll learn more about those in videos to come. But the most famous form of prokaryote and the most famous type of bacteria is none other than something called Cyanobacteria. And this guy is kind of an all-star. Cyanobacteria is photosynthetic. In other words, it did photosynthesis. It is thought to be the first form of organism, first cell, and it is responsible for providing the first free oxygen, O2, providing O2 to the atmosphere. All right, so in early Earth, before there was any oxygen in the atmosphere, there was the development of this prokaryote named bacteria, and the type of bacteria it was a Cyanobacteria, and it's responsible for putting oxygen into our atmosphere. And you'll hear me say prokaryote and prokaryote. I think it's supposed to be prokaryote, but I've gotten to a bad habit of pronouncing it a different way. So anyway, prokaryote has no nucleus. It does have some aspects that they also share with eukaryotes. The most important bacteria is Cyanobacteria, and it is responsible for providing oxygen to the atmosphere in ancient Earth. Okay, moving on. Here we have two examples of a eukaryote. Eukaryote. And we have a plant cell, and an animal cell. And you'll see the differences, and we'll talk about the differences at another time. But basically, just visually, you can see that the plant cell has a cell wall, and it has something called chloroplasts that help do photosynthesis. The animal cell does not have a chloroplast, and does not have a cell wall. It has a cell membrane. Okay. Here the plant cell is more box-like in structure. Okay, where there's kind of more rigid lines, and then an animal cell is more rounded, as you can see. Okay, but the things that really identify the eukaryote from the prokaryote is, of course, the presence. You gotta find a good color that's going to show up here. The presence of a nucleus. Here's a nucleus, and here's another nucleus. Probably should have picked a better color. Let's try this one. Here's a nucleus, and here's the nucleus of the animal cell. Okay, and the most important aspect of a eukaryote or eukaryot is that it has something called organelles, not organs. We have organs, not organs, but the cell has something called organelles, and the words are similar because its functions are similar. Just like we have organs like the heart and the lungs and the liver and whatever else you can think of. Those organs have a specific purpose and a specific job, and they're separated by, they're individual entities. They're its own organ, and it's encompassed within its own tissue, and it has its own job to do. Same thing for organelles. So we have things called mitochondria and chloroplasts here, and something called endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi bodies, and here's some more mitochondria. And each of them have its own function, and each of the organelles are membrane bound. In other words, they are encapsulated within its own membrane. Okay, it's protected, and it's an individual piece of the cell. So there are some similarities between the eukaryote and the prokaryote. One of the main things to remember about a eukaryote is that it has these things called organelles, much like organs of a human. Okay, I've rambled on enough. I'm over 8 minutes now, so I apologize for the length, and I'll see you for the next one.